Namaste, 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 Khushboo. How are
Hello,
you?
namaste. Namaste, Mohit.
Namaste, good evening.
Gaurav.
Good
Good evening.
evening, good evening. Welcome, Khushboo. Welcome, Gaurav. Thank you for being here. And welcome, my friends. Let's see how many people. Oh, Sohail Saab is here. Deepika is here. Wow, wonderful. Thank you for being here, Deepika. So all our old friends are here. Ajay Fareen, and there are more people joining it now.
Hello, everybody.
So let me just see what are there. Yogeshi, Royji, Vishwa, Shivaji, Arun, Kusum, good to see you. Venkatesh, Ajit, Rohan, welcome to this webinar. Today we have Khushboo with us, who's going to talk to you about some photography techniques, wildlife photography techniques. And I'm quite pleased with her photography. Some of the images are jaw-dropping.
Thank you so
Let me
much.
just quickly put this noise off. There is a fan. Yeah, there was the fan which was running to keep the mosquitoes away. Hey, what's the sound? Gaurav, what's the sound?
I don't know.
Can you hear some sound?
I've got coils outside my window in case that's what you're hearing.
Which is well,
I guess
good
that
sounds.
it is.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
great.
So, friends, can you hear me properly? Can you hear all of us?
If somebody can just drop in a message telling that everything
Okay.
is very clear.
Wonderful. Thank you, Arunji. Thank you, Vimiji. We are going to start now, and I'll quickly tell you the context. The context is that Khushboo is going to give you a slideshow, and she's a very illustrious photographer, and she's been through lots of national parks of India and abroad, and photographed wildlife for many years. So she's here to tell us about uh, certain key techniques, ethical photography, how to be right with wildlife, how to be considerate, and what is the responsibility of any wildlife photographer, and how to tread softly in the jungle. I think these are the things that I aspire to do. So I'm saying those things because she's going to address them anyways. And what I'm going to do is address your question and answers right in the end. So save those questions, but you can continue to post them in the chat as we go along, so that we can take them up right in the end. The second thing is, just in case if the internet connection goes off, don't go away, because this entire platform has a firefighting mechanism, and we can put that press the panic button, and we are rebooted in no time. It takes less than 2 minutes. So just in case if that happens, don't go away. Yeah, I will. So two of my colleagues, Khushboo and Gaurav, are here, and I'll quickly introduce myself for those people who are here for the first time, and then I'll just let Gaurav take over and introduce himself, and then Khushboo will show her magic to you. So quickly, just to let you know that I'm Mohit Aggarwal. Professionally, I'm an experiential ecotourism specialist with a deep love for nature. I help people travel to some wonderful places in Asia. I am the vice chair of Asian Ecotourism Network, and I've been trained and certified by GSTC in sustainable tourism. I'm the founder of Asian Adventures. It's a 29-year-old travel outfit. It is the largest and number one birding company in India. I'm also the founder of NatiNet. It's an email marketing company for nature-centric companies and nature-centric outfits. These companies are on a mission to help Asian elephants with their corridors. So currently we're working with Wildlife Trust of India and to free the Himalaya of plastic waste. We also help small wildlife NGOs, and my personal interest is to conserve the originality of the ancient Himalayan temples. So that's a bit about me, and to give you in a just a brief about GWF, which is Global Wildlife Fair. It is going to happen in 2025. It is going to be the largest wildlife fair on this planet, and it'll be a recurring fair that will happen year after year. So you'll have an opportunity uh, to go deeper into conservation issues with a lot of NGOs and understand how ecotourism as a science has a very important role to play to back conservation, wildlife conservation that we all want to be a part of. So this is a bit about me and Asian Adventures. Over to Gaurav. Gaurav, it's all yours. I'm going to mute myself now. So over to you.
Namaste everyone, good evening. Sorry if my video or audio gets a bit patchy during this webinar. I'm having some technical issues with my internet. So to tell you about myself, my name is Gaurav Nalkur. I'm an avid bird watcher and I have a deep love of nature. And I'm a strong believer in using wildlife tourism as a means to raise awareness for conservation, wildlife conservation issues. Uh, Professionally, educationally, I'm qualified as a wildlife research biologist. I'm especially interested in urban bird diversity, and I've worked in the Western Ghats on species like and currently, professionally, I'm training to be an ecotourism expert. And luckily, for the last 4 years, I've been working with Asian Adventures, both of whom share my passion for using wildlife tourism, uh, as a to sort of bridge the gap between wildlife conservation and wildlife tourism. So we have the GWF Global Wildlife Fair, as Mohit mentioned, that's coming up in 2025. We also have our Earthworks program, which is helping in that in raising conservation awareness. I think I'll add a link about Earthworks later on during the slideshow. So enough about me. I think we'll hand on to Khushboo, who will, she's a star of today's show. So I'll hand it over to her.
So I will do that honor. I will talk about Khushboo here.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
so Khushboo is a passionate photographer who's put her, soul into photographing all sort of wild species. For her, photography is a language through which she expresses her love for nature and an unstoppable force, which has dragged her into various forests and helped her return with more knowledge every time. Her hard work has been rewarded with her work featured on such platforms such as BBC Earth, Nature in Focus, and others, and multiple galleries and exhibitions. Her goal is to make everyone fall in love with nature. And, she wants people to strongly preserve the things that they love. She's on a mission to sow the seeds of conservation in the hearts and minds of people. I think that's really, really beautiful.
Thank
Wonderful,
you.
Khushbu.
Thank
So
you,
over to
Mohit.
you.
Thank you for the lovely introduction. Hello, everybody. Very good evening, and I'm super excited to have you all here. Uh, I would love to showcase, move ahead with the presentation and see introduce you to the my journey of wildlife. Thank you. Let's continue. For me, wildlife is a genre of photography that records the life of animals in their natural settings, like in forest or underwater, or basically in their natural habitats. However, getting shots of your choice is a very difficult task. I'm in this field for about approximately 6 years now, and I understand the challenge, how challenging it is. You cannot predict anything about wildlife. Everybody wants to take good shots, but it's not that easy, as we have to consider lighting, environment, proper planning, determination, and we need to have a lot of patience. Patience is the key, I believe. As you scroll through the internet, you might find yourself dreaming about capturing those kind of images. But most of the pictures you see are the result of many hours of hard work and patience, hardship, and a good amount of luck. Luck plays a major role in wildlife for sure. Uh, about me, I would like to give an introduction. One day, the beauty of the natural world, of which I was a dumbfounded spectator, took over. It felt as if my love for and wildlife had fully blossomed. I felt this urge to share it, to share this joy with the whatever I experienced, and here I am, maybe. So, thus began my journey into wildlife. And how it all started, certain incidents changed the way we look at things forever. Such an incident happened to me on my very first safari in Bandipur. Everyone in my jeep could spot the leopard drinking water, camouflaged well in the background. Everyone except me. I could not get a glimpse of the big cat while it rushed back to its abode. So that was one sight which was very frustrating, and at that time I had tears rolling down. It ignited a desire, within me to learn more about the ways of nature. With time and experience, I have been able to spot wildlife, much better than I could before. All thanks to that elusive leopard, on my first safari, who actually was very shy. So thanks to him. The basics of wildlife photography. Wildlife photography is not something which happens overnight. It takes time in the field and lots of experimentation. So, what does it take to become a wildlife photographer? How do you do it well? These questions keep arising, and I try to find answer for myself. And I'll be sharing with you all a few tips from my learnings that will help you boost your game into this exciting adventure. The settings, coming to the technical aspects, the first and foremost, I would say use RAW. Always click in RAW mode, no excuses. Make it a habit to shoot in RAW mode. There's a lot of discussion on the web, on shooting both RAW and JPEG simultaneously. But at the end of the day, JPEG files are unnecessary addition, as you'll end up working on the RAW files, because the RAW files contain massive amounts of pixel information when compared to the JPEG files. I know the JPEG files are smaller in size and they show less noise, but just don't go by this. In my initial days, I used to click in JPEG, and trust me, I'll never suggest that to you. I'll never suggest you to make that mistake. A JPEG shrinks the quality of the image as they are already processed by your camera, while the RAW contains all the data captured from your camera. So take the control and shoot RAW. RAW is the key. Coming to the next one is the modes. There are three main requirements from an image, from a good image: the sharpness, the depth of field or the aperture, and the exposure, as the image needs to be well exposed. There's a program dial on the top of the camera where all of us have, and where we can change the different modes of the camera. And it has auto mode, manual mode, aperture mode, shutter priority mode. So I'll just give you a gist on all these modes. So auto mode is the mode where we get the optimal exposure, but there is no control over the sharpness and depth of field. And we can see that many people who initially in their initial stages, they definitely shoot in auto mode, and slowly with time, as in how they learn the techniques, they get friendly with the camera, they start learning the different modes, and then they select one mode which is apt to their purpose. Next is the manual mode. In manual mode, you can control the sharpness and the depth of field, but you cannot control the exposure always, unless and until we use the metering or do lot of trial and errors. It's a little tough when we are on the field to determine the right combination, as everything happens very quickly, and we cannot keep juggling with the settings over there on the field. We might miss the opportunity. The other two modes are the aperture priority mode and the shutter priority mode. In aperture priority mode, we choose the depth of field or the aperture and set the ISO we want. And the camera will automatically appropriately calculate the shutter speed based on the lighting conditions and the ensure that the exposure is right. Whereas in shutter priority mode, we choose the shutter speed we want based on the speed of the subject. In this case, the camera will automatically calculate the depth of field or the aperture and will give you the right exposure. In both the cases, if we are not happy with the exposure, we need to tweak with the exposure compensation button. As a wildlife photographer myself, I have pre-programmed my into aperture priority mode for wildlife photography set up on my camera all the time. This means I just need to focus on the shutter speed and can change all my settings very quickly. And the next point is very much related to what I just said, that we need to keep an eye on the shutter speed. The duration for which the shutter remains open, letting the light enter into the sensor, is called as the shutter speed. When do you need fast and when do you need a slow shutter speed all depends on your point of taking that image along with the subject. The faster the shutter speed, the lesser the light captured. The slower the shutter speed, the more the light captured. Under most of the cases in wildlife photography, we want our images to be sharp, and for that, we need a high shutter speed. Next comes with the play of ISO. The ISO number of image sensors defines their sensitivity to light. As ISO increases, so does the image noise. So in order to avoid this visual distortion, it's generally recommended to use the lowest possible ISO, which depending on the scenario. Though some scenes are such where you may require to use a higher ISO in order to balance the exposure triangle. Knowing the gaze limitation, which will allow you to do so without compromising the quality of the image too much. After all, I would have a noisy image than a blurry image because noise can be reduced in post-processing softwares, but the blur image cannot be fixed. So don't be afraid of pumping your ISO when needed. Just know the extremes of your camera. Next, we'll go to aperture. We need to choose the aperture based on our perspective. What is our main, perspective behind shooting that particular image? So aperture is an opening in the back of the lens which lets the light through the shutter speed. Apart from determining the amount of light passing through the sensor, aperture also controls the depth of field. So depth of field is, the distance from the focus point, the distance between the background and the foreground is called as the depth of field. How sharp it appears is called as the depth of field. So the larger the aperture, the more the light let in and the lesser the depth of field. The smaller the aperture, the less the light let in and greater the depth of field. So low aperture like, f2.8, f4, f5.6 means a narrow depth of field. And a higher aperture like f8, f11, f16 gives you a wider depth of field. The back button focus. Believe me, this is a game changer to get the brilliant images. It not only gives an extra added advantage to focus and compose images, but it also saves the unexpected shutter click as every click matters. It helps me a lot in capturing birds as by using the back button, I can chase the bird in flight or doing any activity. So this is more or less about the technical settings of our camera, which we need to be taking care of while we are on the field. And definitely you'll be learning more when we are on the field and when we are practicing. We'll definitely connect a lot and, go more deeper into these details. The equipment. I mean, these were the settings, but the equipment was something where we have to be, conscious about. No point is valid if you do not know your camera well. Read the camera manual as many times as you can. Take time to understand the exposure meter, focusing points, how much ISO your camera can handle, different metering modes, and every other detail, tiny detail possible. Learn every single detail about your camera. In wildlife, there is no retake. And you have to be, incredibly fast and capture the moment because it is just a matter of time. There is a saying that if you blink, you miss. So this is how that you should be very quick and you should be knowing your camera very well. Just like others, I too have faced plenty of failures, shooting bad composition, excessive post processing, testing out shutter speeds, different shutter speeds, and whatnot. But I'm sure if you know your camera well, if you know your equipment well, we'll definitely come up with we'll overcome this difficulty. So, also one more thing which you should know about your gears is which gear to carry based on what purpose. You don't need high-end gears, and a long list of camera accessories to take outstanding wildlife photos. No, you can do it very well with the basic camera which you have at home if you know the settings well. And in fact, patience and perseverance will play just as important of a role, if not more, in the outcome for sure. So, as it is in the case of the other genre, knowing what your camera is capable of is one of the most important aspects of wildlife photography. At the same time, you must be aware of the limitations of your gear to avoid disappointment at the time of your shoot. So what I do is I usually follow a checklist. I create a specific, checklist for a specific trip. So this allows me to pack the essentials and leave behind everything else. So, on contrary to popular belief, like, overpacking can be much worse than underpacking. So we need to know that what we need for that particular specific trip. It's actually one of the most preventable of all mistakes, made by photographers. The extra load will make you feel weighed down and uncomfortable, and you might also even not enjoy the experience of being there in the field. Like, for example, if I'm going on a photography tour of for a bird photography, I try to take my longest lens and maybe carry two camera bodies. But if I'm shooting landscapes, I'll leave the telephoto lens behind, and I'll personally, I'll feel that they don't add value to the trip. So I'll maybe carry my smaller lenses, wide angle lenses. So this is how you need to know your camera, you need to know your gears well, and every camera is made for a purpose. So it's not that the high end gears will only help you achieve great images. Mohit, tell me if I'm going very fast and if it is something where I need to, or if there is something you need to be.
Yeah, I think it's nice. It's very nice, but you also keep talking about the experience. People are
I'll do that.
interested about your
I'll
experience with the
definitely.
species, like otters. So it's so interesting to see otters, swimming in the water and then catching fish. Otters are very shy.
Yes,
A few stories like that will
yes, I'll
interest people.
definitely add to it. So this image was taken from Galibor. It is very close to Bangalore, and we were just sitting on the banks of the river Kaveri, and near the firewood there, set up their camp there, and on the opposite side of the river we see these otters. Unfortunately, I had my camera that time, and on the other side of the river, I see these otters, coming, and they were passing the, from one end to the other end. So I just picked up my camera and I shot this image, and it is, it, they were going into the water, coming on the bank again, and then catching a fish, coming back, and then again getting into the water. So it was a very beautiful sight to see when I had seen this. Though it was not my wildlife trip, but I usually carry my equipments along with me, and I was just sitting beside the bank, and I thought I'll maybe capture the light trails or the sometime something during the sunset. But I was very fortunate to get this otter image, and it was very lovely experience. It was a surprising experience, and it gave me very much a good image to cover up. And this is an elusive leopard from Kabini, a black panther. which is now a very rare sighting in Kabini. And what I would like to say here is we can learn all the technicalities, and we can know where to start to be one of the and see face our obstacles. But there are opportunities everywhere, like the otter image, previous image which we saw. There are opportunities everywhere, and this is how wildlife can start. And we can start at home, capturing images of the birds in the gardens, or wildlife which is very the urban wildlife, which we can say. Yes, so acquiring skills is important, but practicing them on field is also a different key which we should be taking care of. Coming to composition and framing, these both are very essential in creating visually appealing images that showcase the animal's natural beauty in the environment, and also it is appealing to the eyes. So that is something which we need to be taking care of. And while photographing images, what we can while making framing a composition, what we can do is we can follow a few guidelines, which is not a set of rules, but we can follow these guidelines to get more appealing images. Like the rule of thirds. Rule of thirds is the most widely used composition technique in all the genres. The basic premise is to separate the image into two thirds, and both horizontally and vertically, and place our subject into any of these intersecting points. This technique can be applied to birds or wildlife or in any situation, and it will give you a very nice image. Like for this image, which was shot in Ranthambore, the tiger crossing the Rajbagh Lake. So here, if you see, I have applied the rule of thirds, and you can see the tiger walking. So here, the rule of thirds is applied. Secondly, the horizon rule of horizon is applied. So horizon, or you need to make a point on the horizon, or uh, the lines in the frame, if at all possible. So which will help us frame the subject very properly. So this is showcasing the habitat of the Ranthambore, the forest behind, as well as the Rajbagh, the famous Rajbagh Lake, and the tiger crossing. That it was one of the moment, where one of the rare moment where we get to capture such kind of images. So follow rule of thirds like in this, and avoid distracting backgrounds if possible. What we choose to include in our photography composition helps express our story. So avoid distracting backgrounds, avoid chopping off the body parts. Majorly, most of us end up doing this mistake. So, chopping of the tail, or probably the tip of the ears or the toes. We should avoid chopping of body parts of the subject. Try to shoot at eye level, one of the key. Getting down low and on eye level with our subject will get dramatically change. Can dramatically change the feel of your image. So try to go on eye level, bend down, and then try to take the image. And of course, horizontal or vertical frame, we can, so choose to select horizontal. If you have a horizon in your frame, like in this frame, we can avoid placing the subject in the middle of the frame. We can instead place in the bottom two-third or the top two-third place. Like in this, whichever can add value to the image. Like in this, I chose the horizon of the stone path to be in the bottom of the frame, because I wanted to give the feel of the forest, which can make the composition interesting. So yeah, this is something which we can be taking care of. And in this kind of images, which is a vertical or a portrait orientation framing, this is used when what is on the taller side, which is more that, and that is more interesting than what is on the left and right. And if you don't have anything, then try to, if the subject is facing at you, or if the body is tall, try to take a vertical shot, which will add an factor to your image. Exactly, like even if, like in this, like how the mother and the baby, the connect between them is also seen while both of them are also facing the camera, and the body is taller. So right or left, if anything adds, also this whole image is which is talking to us. So this is what we need to be taking care of. Also, in cases like when a tiger is walking, straight towards you, and its height is, more when compared to what is there in the width. So there, in such cases, try to take vertical images. Also, what we need to take care while composing the images, like positive spacing and the negative spacing. Like in this image, if I tell you, the tiger is walking towards the left direction, and if you see, I have given more space in the left direction rather than in the back of the tiger, or probably the right part of the subject. So, which is the right part is called as the negative spacing, and the left part is called as the positive spacing. So ideally you should leave more space in the direction the subject is looking or walking or flying or whatever, and less space in the on the opposite end. In so doing, you can let the audience imagine the subject's action or behavior, which will allow for a connection between the subject and the the audience. So yeah, and also when cropping, you need to be very conscious whether would you like to crop it when you're composing itself, or would you like to do it while you're doing post processing. So if you're cropping on while you're doing while you're on the field and when you're composing, that will add more value rather than cropping after during your post processing, because when you crop an image, you start degrading its quality by throwing away pixels, so that makes no point. So try to crop and frame your subject well during when you're in the field, and do not let get lost in the composition alone. All of the wildlife tips discussed here are useless if the main subject is not making an eye contact. Like in this image, the eye contact is adding so much to our frame. So see that you have an eye contact in your image. And I've met a lot of clients, who get really stressed about not getting the perfect shot, and they crib, like, I didn't get a perfect shot. But my answer to this is always the same: there's always next time. It's important to remember that witnessing certain wildlife scenes is a privilege that not many people have. And we have that. So we need to enjoy that moment, and, instead of getting stressed about not nailing the composition, but enjoy the moment also. So apart from these technical aspects, I would definitely suggest that enjoy the moment also, in case if you feel that, you're struggling a lot. First enjoy the moment, and then definitely we can master these techniques, over the period of time. Focus.
I have something to add there. May
Yes,
I?
yes, sure.
So, so friends, also you have to understand that this mother has a little baby along with her, and we got to be very careful when we are approaching, animals with their babies. We got to be sensitive, and like how your baby will get scared, similarly these babies also get scared, and they may be curious to know what you're doing or whatever, but as long as you can make them feel comfortable and you enjoy the movement and you send out good energy, then they will allow you access, easy access. Huh? But if you sort of jostling because you want to get right in front, because you want to take the best photo and the others should not get a chance, all that commotion also scares away the animals. So you got to be mindful when you're doing that. You need to first have the well-being of the animal in your, as focus, rather than focusing your camera towards the animal. So that's my take on this particular show.
Absolutely. Very well said, Mohit. This I'll be elaborating more when, on the future slides, on the slides which we have ahead. But yeah, that is the key, that we should not scare the animal. We should always maintain a distance, which is very necessary when we are on the field. And it is very beautifully portraying, this image is also very beautifully portraying the mother and the baby bond which is there in the frame. So I hope you like it too. I mean, this is one of my favorite of the Langu's pictures. Coming to photo editing or post processing, I try to bring out the natural elements and avoid manipulating or heavy post processing the images. So, if you see the image here, which I have, one is the raw version which I had shot on the field with the camera settings I did on the field there, and one is the processed image which I did. So if you see in this image, there is not much. So it is a very natural image, and all I had done here is I worked upon the the correction or enhancing of the color, the brightness, the contrast, and the sharpness. In short, to apply I applied the finishing touch, not too much and not very less. So we need to be very careful, as too much is too bad. So we need to be very careful while processing the image, and just keep the natural essence of it, if possible. So taking your photo on the field is only half the task, when creating incredible natural shots of nature. As nature photography is an ever-changing field. We have new techniques, new gadgets, new softwares are all emerging from time to time, which enhances, the nature photos. So there always seems to be a new angle or a subject or editing trend that might, make it very overwhelming. So there's no definition that defines a good photograph, but my approach to this is that it all depends on on your perspective and the intention of the target audience. So you want to which you want to showcase to. So be very careful on this aspect, and once all your editing is done, take a moment and admire the raw and the processed pictures, the final product, and what just note what story it's telling, how it captures the essence of the moment, and what it tells us about the bit of the natural world. So be conscious on that, be careful, do not overcook your images, and do it very wisely, and see that all the natural elements are there, which gives a very natural look to the frame. This is, I believe, all of us must have faced, in whatever stage we are in. Make mistakes and learn from them. That's how you learn good lessons and approach your photography in a more, better way, I believe. That is so true. It's okay to make mistakes. We have spent, what happens when we spent hours for our target animal to appear, and when it appears, we lift up the camera and fire the shutter button, securing ourselves, series of images. But with all that adrenaline rush, we had we might have accidentally made some of the common mistakes while in wildlife in the field. So it is very important to keep in mind the basics and ensure that we do not panic, and take the pictures very well. So one good picture is better than 10 rubbish ones. So make note over these points, and make sure you don't make mistakes over the period of time. So it will help you to get closer to that perfect shot. Practice will definitely help you lead there. So the most satisfying pictures, are often created at home. So once the photographer has learned, that about the bugs and the butterflies we have in our garden, and when we keep practicing them, we might overcome our mistakes. So just keep practicing. The more and more you practice, and the more and more you learn on new techniques. When you make mistakes, we learn and we understand the different techniques and different combination on where we went wrong and what can be done right. So definitely make a mistakes, and we can whatever is around, start shooting with that, and we can definitely overcome those mistakes. While this image was selected by Nature in Focus in one of the article, for this is a giant grizzled squirrel. It is an endangered species in the Western Ghats, and this shot was taken, and it was published by Nature in Focus, and it is a very lovely shot where it's the how the squirrels hang upside down and pluck the fruits and eat. So this is showcasing, and it is very, the shape of the animal, its tail and everything. It's very beautifully. How that scene was, I tried to capture that, and if you see, all my pictures have that natural essence in it, and I do not try to manipulate them. So we need to take care of all such things and move ahead. uh, portraits. Mohit, as you earlier said that do not get closer to the subject. So such tight portraits are not taken by going very close to the subject. Luckily, we have these telephoto lenses to help us get photographically close if we can't get physically close to the animal. Most wildlife photographers use very long lenses like 100 400 mm or 400 mm 600 prime mm 200 500 150 600 different long lenses to achieve perfect wildlife photography composition. So they use this lens to get closer without scaring the animal or putting themselves in danger. So we have ways to get tight portraits as well or get a closer perspective of the animal if we want to. So embrace the tight photography composition whenever necessary. Like here in this image, I wanted to direct the viewer's attention to this intriguing beauty of the peacock. Therefore, I composed a frame filling scene by getting very close perspective of a peacock. So here is one of a very tight portrait of a bear. This is from Tadoba. So it was digging on the bugs and finding food to eat. And while it was roaming, I found a spot where I was getting a good light on the subject, and I tried to capture a very close because I had a zoom lens and it was not very far. The animal was walking aside, so I thought I'll take a very tight portrait of it. This image was of a green vine snake is from Kurg. And here I took a low-key, will come on the low-key image later on. And that technique later on in the later presentation, in the later part of the presentation. But this is a very close portrait of the snake. And if you see, all the details are very clearly seen. And the tongue, how the tongue is out. It is a very beautiful image and one of my favorites from the macro side perspective. This was inspired. This was an image, my first type portrait, I can say, which I had taken. It was from one of the dominant male in Ranthambore, and this image was I had taken from an inspiration, and it was one of very appealing image which I had of a tight portrait of a tiger, and this is very close to my heart. This is of a lion-tailed macaw from Valparai. They are also endangered species, and they are it was very interesting to see in Valparai where the forest department takes such beautiful steps to save these endangered species. There are people who are continuously tracking the groups of the numbers of the groups firstly, and then the places where they are moving, and they can constantly move, and they also ensure that the people do not harm these because they're notorious in nature, right? But so they make a point where the villagers or the locals do not harm these species, and the conservation is done very well from the forest department side on this aspect. And it is one of the land-tail macaw which tried to. I was in the car trying to photograph this, and this land-tail macaw just hops on the car. Luckily, I by chance got enough time to put my window up, and it was sitting right beside the vehicle, and got a nice eye level shot of this lion-tailed macaw. Also, like this, shots of a tight portrait of the elephant with the natural habitat around. So here the elephant was nicely walking straight head on to us. So I thought, let me get a head on shot, and the greens and the the grassland, just giving a very beautiful impact in the frame. So we should always keep such things in mind while making portraits of the animal or the subject. This is also very important, which we also discussed earlier, like, capturing the essence of habitat and wildlife. So, from intimate portraits of, these majestic creatures to breathtaking images of their environment. Like in this frame, if we see, it is an image of a tusker which with a long tusk. This image was taken from Kabini, and you can see the backwaters there of Kabini and the beautiful green patch on the other side of the bank, which is giving the feel of the place. So environment adds so much. When you add the elements of environment into your frame, it adds so much to your picture, and it adds value. Basically, you show the nature, so that is something which is very beautiful to add to add the natural elements into your frame. So, when the constraints imposed, on the way that an image is captured is regard to the depth of field. Technically, when we see, the depth of field also changes drastically as the focal length increases. So the backgrounds and foregrounds are thrown out of focus to the extent that by if you are using an aperture of f4, the animal surroundings become homogeneous mush, with a color, or with no color, very little or no details. So if you see, the elephant is very small part of the frame, and the other things are helping the elephant pop out in the frame. So this is how we can make great effect to make the subject stand out from its surrounding, and give a greater emphasis on the image. This is of a early morning shot of a wild Indian gaur in the tea estates. This is a shot from Valparai. So if you can see, the background green depicts the tea estate, and even the starting foreground. If you can see the bouquet effect of the tea leaves. I try to get down and take an eye level shot. So this is also one of the habitat image of the tea estate in the Valparai. It's a beautiful landscape, and definitely, if you all wish to join in the Valparai tour, it is one of the very beautiful places to photograph macro, to photograph the lion-tailed macaw and the natural habitat in the tea estate, the wild animals in the tea estate. So it's one of a very good opportunity in case if you all want to register. I guess there's definitely a link, right, Mohit, for the Valparai tours?
Yes, I've just posted the link and they can see
Yes,
the tours that they can do with you
yes,
to Valparaiso, Gombe, Amboli, Great Himalayan National Park, Ladakh for wildlife photography. So, so they can travel with you to all these places.
yes, yes.
And Hampi also for ancient ruins and also for the sloth bears.
I'll definitely come to the chat section, and after the presentation, I'll have a look and definitely answer to as many questions possible. But let me first continue, because if the flow breaks, what I have so when I have so much to share with you, let me continue with that first, and definitely I'll come to all the chats and the question and answers there. This image is from Javai. It is one of the very different landscape from the usual landscape. Javai has rocky mountains, huge, massive rocky mountains, and these are homes to these elusive leopards. So in this picture, if you see, there's a den on the right side of the leopard, left side of the leopard. If you see, there's a way to the den, which is where the mother had kept the cubs, tiny cubs, and you can see the tiny cub playing with the tail of the mother in this image, which is very generally we miss out on such tiny details. So just try to capture these little things in the frame, the green in the Rocky Mountains, the cub playing with the tail of the mother, showing how playful the cubs are, and how they try to annoy the mom. But also place, and we were on the opposite rock. That is where I got this eye level. We were on the opposite rock. We climbed on the opposite rock, and we could get this shot. It was very far, but I had a good longer lens where I could capture this beautiful image shot. This elephant shot is from Bandipur, and if you see, you can see the from water to the sky. So it is covering the the ground level, the water reflection, little bit which I could capture because I could not set everything in the frame, and the behavior of the elephant, which is trying to uh, eat the. This is during a monsoon, during the monsoon time where the greens are nice, lush greens, and the elephant trying to eat the fresh grass, and behind you can see the mountains. So try to because the elephant was standing right straight opposite, I shot this vertically, and I tried to capture from water to the clouds. So add such elements, it will be a very beautiful image. If you try to add such elements, the natural elements, if we try to add in, and the natural and if we try to make the nature part of our frame, it will help us capture the image very beautifully. This is one of the major aspects. I've been telling you stories from the previous slides as well, but here also uh, I have very more interesting stories to share with you. So whenever we are clicking pictures or taking photographs, these photographs can tell you a lot about the subject and the photographer. The moments and the time they capture can speak of mood, atmosphere, desire, and many more. So, storytelling through photography means finding effective ways to convey narratives and emotions with a single thought provoking image. Not to mention what we want to see, something that again differs from the person, from one person to the next. So this image, if we see, which which I have right here in front of you, is an image from Ranthambore, where mother and three cubs are chilling, in a hot summer month in the June, month of June. This was captured in 2022, and this shot was taken when they were on a kill basically, and after having the after feeding on the kill, they came and sat in this water to cool themselves. So it is saying about the behavior attribute of the tigers when they try to cool them off during the hot summers. Number one. Number two, if you see, there's mother in the center of the frame, and there are two cubs sitting on the side and one cub sitting alongside with mother, and the mother is trying to discipline the cub. So this is one of the very the mother, the tiger behavior. This tells about the tiger behavior, and the mother tries to discipline the cubs a lot. So the cubs stay with the mom till approximately 2 years, and here if you see, the cubs are quite. They were approximately 1.5 year old in this during this time, and they were all big enough. And she usually makes a kill very often. And here I love this emotion of her trying to discipline the one of the cub, which is very interesting to see. So try to create images which can tell stories. Like looking at it, we can get so many inputs, and what can we withdraw from the images. So try to create such stories when you're composing the frame. Like this shot, if you see, the elephant is not looking at us. We don't have much, but usually what happens if an animal, just bypasses us or probably goes in the opposite direction, we usually move on and have a look at the other. But this tells us on how a solitary animal is walking into the forest and with no distractions in the background. This is very interesting image to me. I find such images also very interesting, which also tells that it is not always that the animal comes, right in front of us. It also happens that, we miss on so many moments and so many emotions, in this chaos of taking the best shot. This is a shot from Tadoba, and it is one of the most interesting. It has one of the most interesting story behind. So here you can see there are two adult tigers and two cubs, where one cub is also there, which is hidden behind these three tigers on the right side. So basically, there are five in a frame with a kill. There's a kill of wild boar. And there's a little longer story behind this frame, Mohit, if you don't mind me sharing. I would definitely love to share this. So what happened? This mother was chilling in the water. We initially saw this boa chilling in the water, and we were wondering because we knew that she had cubs. So we were wondering we would see the cubs, but she was chilling in the water, and we thought we would not get a sight of her. And suddenly she gets up and she goes into the bush, and we thought that we lost the opportunity and maybe she might not come back. But to our surprise, she in probably a fraction of seconds or probably 1 or 2 seconds, she comes out from the opposite direction of that bush which she entered, and she was carrying a wild boar, a baby wild boar kill in her mouth. And there was no noise, absolute silence in the forest, and there were spotted deers, right near our vehicles, and absolutely there was no commotion at all. And suddenly she was very calmly holding the skill and coming from one part of the lake to the other part of the lake. And she comes, and we literally had no clue on the presence of the other four tigers. It was right opposite, a little far away, but in the same direction where we were standing and waiting for her to pass and come. So these cubs were hiding in the bush, and this other male, other big tiger is the male tiger, which is the dad of the cubs, who was taking care of the cubs while mother went on hunting. So this whole behavior, if you see the whole story, and when the mom came near these cubs, she just put the kill down, and instantly, four tigers pops out of the grass suddenly out of nowhere, and the cubs try to pull the kill and try to grab it and chase between the chase between the amongst the cubs started. So this whole scene was so mesmerizing and so full of surprises for us, which has added so many elements in this whole probably hardly 2 to 3 minutes duration. There was so much happening around that we had no clue, and this is how wildlife is. So we need to also be conscious on the behaviors of the animal. We need to know our animal subject very well, because when we know the behavior of the animal, it will be at times very easy. At times it will be a surprise, like in this shot, but at times it can also be very easy for us to predict about the next movement of the animal, and we can plan it well and we can frame well pictures when we know the behavior patterns. Coming to next, this is one of pictures again from Jabai, and it is, if you see closely, the leopard has injury in the on the forehead near the nose, though it was taken care of by the forest department and they took well care. Once the leopard was taken to the rescue center, and once it was cured, it had again they had brought back to the wild. So we had tracked this and we knew that the right thing was happening there. But here it is one of the most dominant male in Javai, and when we saw this leopard limping, we were wondering why is it limping, and then it tried to hide between the stones, and it was looking kind of peeping, and that is when we took this shot. And it was very late in the evening, and I could get a low-key image of it. But if you see in this, the image was trying to hide itself while it was injured. Otherwise, it is a very bold leopard, which usually sits and poses for us. But here it is trying to hide. So here it tells us about the behavior when it is an injured. It tries to hide and tries to be even more elusive in nature, and until it recovers and get back to the form. So this is how we can create. This is a very emotional moment where the mother was trying to. The cubs were again here on the opposite side, and the mother was trying to, fool us around and not let us know about the cubs' presence there. But this notorious cub, just came running when it saw the mom coming on, and it came close, and we can see how beautifully the mother is trying to pamper the cub, and the cub is trying to get all the attention while the other two were also behind walking, but this one notorious one came ahead. So, and it took the attention. So such kind of emotions, candid shots, and all such things add a lot of value to your frame. So try to add these, capture these elements, and not miss out on these. This is a shot from Ranthambore again during the month of October, where you can see how green the forest is. So, for Ranthambore is such a place where the look of the images, change from green to light brown to dark brown as the season changes. So it is a very beautiful, my one of my favorite parks, and I love being there. And every zone has a different beauty, attached to it. So well, this image was taken in 2019, and there's a male leopard and a male tiger and a female tiger, and it's a mating pair. So basically, the female was trying to snarl at the male tiger because she's not interested in the male, and this male is not letting her go. So we had witnessed a very crucial moment after this, which I would definitely be sharing in future. But here, these two, she was trying to fool him around, and he was not leaving her side. So this picture, if you see, she's trying to snarl, and this male tiger is trying to, confused on what to do, whether should I take a step back, or what should I be doing. So it was a very beautiful sight. Play with light. Uh, Light plays a very important role in photography, any genre. Light plays a very important role, and a lot of wild animals are mostly active at the at the dawn and the dusk, the later evening and the early mornings. So naturally, these times in the day have less light available, and that means it can be challenging to keep your shutter speed high enough to, eliminate motion blur or even shake your camera from your shots. So photography is never just about the subject, but it's also the light. So using light creatively in wildlife photography is not always about waiting for the golden hour or something like that, but there's always a way to make the best of whatever lighting conditions you are given. And this shot, if you see, was taken during the it was taken after the sunrise bell, but we were lucky to have a darker background, and I'll tell you in the coming time that what technique we can use. This is called as a low key image. So here you can see the grapevine on the the plantation there in Kunur. This was shot in Kunur, and here lighting is the key factor, in creating successful images. So lighting determines not only the brightness and the darkness and all, but also sets the tone, the mood, the and the atmosphere. Therefore, it is very necessary to control the and manipulate the light correctly in order to get the best texture, vibrancy of the color. Like here, if you see the vibrant color of the snake and the luminosity on the subject, like how the light, I saw the light falling on the a very nice light falling on the face of the snake, and I had a darker background, and I thought, why not utilize this opportunity and take a nice low key photograph of this snake. Earlier, also, which you had seen, the wine snake portrait, it was also a low key image. So, low key image is a style in which the majority of the image is occupied by the dark tones and shadows, where you have a darker backgrounds, where you have darker tones on behind the subject, and you have a good light falling on the subject, and only the subject or the point of interest, whatever your subject or your point of interest is captured with the correct exposure. Little bit of settings we need to tweak in with the exposure, and we can see if you have a good light, and capturing good photos in low light conditions is very tricky, and is one of the reasons that wildlife photography is so difficult, because there is no control over the light. It is natural light which we have to play with. So after all, light makes or breaks the picture. So we have to be very, we should know the technical aspects, and we should know when and what we have in our frame and how we can take the best advantage. Like in this, where I, instantly saw that I have a darker background, I have a nice light falling, and I took a nice low key image of this. snake. This image, like I said, we can shoot, we can practice photography from anywhere across. This image was, this silhouette was captured during COVID, during lockdown, while I was in my balcony, and the sun was setting, and I saw this painted stork flying by. And every day evening was my task to sit my. I was missing being on field, so what I did was I just used to sit in my balcony with the camera in my hand. I used to capture whatever I could get, out of urban wildlife. So such images, create such images even when you're at home. It is very easy to capture such kind of images. So this is called as a silhouette technique. So the best thing to do as a wildlife photographer is, when you know that the light is behind the subject, and what you can do is just photograph silhouettes. So the light during the sunset or the sunrise. So this was a sunset, which was when this shot was taken. So whenever you have sunrise or sunsets, it is best for the silhouettes photography. So early morning or probably late evening, if you can take silhouette photography, it is one of the best times to click silhouettes. So shoot against the sun and with the subject in the foreground. So when you have that, play with light and shadows, and in a very effective way, you can transform a scene, creating dramatic silhouettes, and fill the images of with the darkness and mystery, and kind of create a very dramatic image. So silhouettes are very simple to create, and in you this light source need to be directly behind your subject. And when you have that, silhouettes are very easy to create, and you should expose for the brightest part in your image. So keep that in mind while creating silhouettes. And typically, this will be when your background is causing your subject to be underexposed, and therefore you get a silhouette. So probably, in these situations, it is very you can just play with your exposures, and you can create beautiful, dramatic images. This is again a low key image of a pelican from Rangantittu. This had shot early this year, 2023. And this was shot when I had again a darker background, and I got good morning light falling on the pelican. So I took advantage, and I took a very nice low-key image of bird in flight. This is another technique in wildlife photography, which is called as rim lighting. So, in simple terms, what I can say is when the backlighting can be explained as when the sun is in front of you, like the sun is in front of you, and the lighting the back of your subject, where the subject is very hairy, or probably like langur, you have a hairy subject, and when the light is falling on the subject, you can see a golden light create, line being created, like the silver. When they say that every cloud has a silver lining, similarly you see a very nice golden or silver lining across the body of the langur or any hairy animal in that matter. So even we get for bears, you get good rim light effect you can use. And backlighting is if you master this style correctly, you can create, you can give dramatic feel to your image. So rim lighting is something which we can understand. If we understand light better, and if we know how we can capture images, we can definitely create such images. So shooting earlier or later in the day when the sun is close to the horizon, is the optimal time to create such images, silhouettes or the rim light images, or even though we can create low-key images any time of the day, but silhouettes and rim lighting are the techniques which we can use. If used during the early morning or the early later in the evening part, it will create more impact, and it will be very much it can give nice contrast levels while creating such images. This is also one of the silhouette taken from Rangantittu this time, and it was when the bird was trying to come and land on the bush there, and I saw the sun, coming peeking from the bush. So I thought, let me take this capture, and I got a good action, freeze during this moment. This is one of my favorite pictures from the last year, where again I had taken a low-key image of monitor lizard, which was on the tree. And the evening time, we were waiting for the tiger, and we suddenly saw this monitor lizard on the branch of the tree, and there was nice light falling on this, where the background had shadows behind it. And I took this image, and such details I got from this image. The details, if you see in this image, the skin texture, the nails, the eyes, the tongue, tiny tongue coming out of from the monitor lizard. It is very interesting to see these textures on such a small creature. So yeah. So that's about play of light, which I just told, and we can create different, very dramatic images when it comes to understanding light, and using the right technique, right settings when you're composing your frames. So you can create a difference definitely. Also here, if we see, reflections are important definitely, and we can use the magic of reflections to elevate our photography. So here, this photo was taken in Mumbai city, in one of the lakes. So I had just visited Mumbai in the month of December in 2020, and I happened to be there in the month of December during New Year, and I thought, maybe I can see flamingos there, and I was in search of it, but unfortunately I couldn't find earlier. And then suddenly I see a flock of birds, big birds flying in, and I realized, oh, they're the flamingos. And one of the person who was taking a walk across that lake had told me that all these days it wasn't there, and it was the first first batch of flamingos which had arrived there. And I was very excited to see that. As we can also see, like later, during the later part of the year, like probably they usually arrive from December end or Jan, and they stay there till March. And if you see, behind you can see smaller, the younger ones, in gray color patch, and by the time they leave, they are all pink, bright pink, and in color. And it was, the pink bed lies when you see in that lake. So that is definitely, that those kind of pictures you must have definitely seen there. But this is some very interesting to me, because here I get a very nice reflection of the three flamingos, which are, simultaneously marching, in one direction. And also behind the younger ones, where the skin textures of both the I can say generations maybe, are very different. And as they grow, their color changes. So I can tell also a story on how the younger ones and the adults, there is a change in colors, and how it happens as they grow. Also, if you see, these birds usually are found in wetlands. If you see behind the kind of trees and the background, everything which is present there, if you can notice, it gives a very nice, the reflection, the two generations here in the present in the frame are all adding so much to the image here. This is one of the youngest crocodile, the very smallest, tiniest crocodile which I had seen. It was a baby croc on a tiny rock, basking in the sun there in the morning light. And I had a very nice. I've got a very nice reflection. If you see, all the tiny details are seen here in this reflection, and the grass and the moth in the water. So the water life is well explained, and the reflection is adding so much to the frame. Though I didn't have much on the upper part of the frame, I tried to add when you have space in the frame, and when you see what is adding more. So try to add reflections in your images where it can add a value. And when you have a reflection, when you have a water body alongside the animal, and if the water is still, and if you can get because still water provides the nature photographer with great opportunities to make gorgeous images with reflections. So let's use this as a part, and try to implement whenever you see a bird or a animal beside a water, try to take reflections, also include reflections in your frames. this was also from Ranganthittu, the Pelican in Flight. Uh, it was a shot this year, and I had. I like monochromes. I like black and white photography as well, and I feel there are few moments which give a lot of factor in the color mode, and but at times the black and white is more appealing. So such kind of frames I usually try to process in black and white. And definitely, if you see, the reflection is though not very clear because the birds were flying constantly there, but in that motion also I have got a good reflection. And because I wanted a low key image, I could not add anything behind the on the upper part of the frame. Nothing dramatic can be added, so I tried to include reflection in this frame. Here also, this is very interesting because I could not get the sunset and this bird because there was a lot of distance at my frame. My camera could not. I didn't have such wide lens at that point of time. So I tried to include the reflection of the sun, which could add a story telling that I had a sunset or a sunrise there present, and also the reflection of the bird which is walking below. So such kind of things, though the sun is not present there, but if you see, it is adding a color pop into the frame, as well as also this reflection is telling everything about the frame, everything about the that present moment. This is also one of the family tiger resting beside a water here. And if you see this reflection of the tiger, though it was not very clear, the water was not still because they were also drinking water there. But I could manage to get a nice, decent shape of the tiger, which is sitting. This is one of the cub, and you can see the mother and the other cub resting there, sleeping, being lazy. And this was maybe one of the active cubs which was posing for us and giving us different poses to capture. So yeah, reflections are a very creative tool. If you can use it wisely, there's nothing quite like the effect they can create. I mean, this is about action, freezing action, but also here, if you see, there's a reflection, and it is adding to the egrets motion. So yes, coming to the slide about freezing action. So technically, to freeze action, we need fastest shutter speed and to capture the subject in motion without any blur. So here, if you see, my shutter speed was sharp enough to get the water droplets clear. The feathers of the egrets had not softened, and it is giving a nice sharp edges here, and the reflection. And having a darker background, I had utilized this opportunity. And this shot was taken in 2020 from Ranganthittu itself, but it was a nice action which I had once got an opportunity to shoot. So slower the shutter speed can result in the shaky or blurry images. So what is the fast shutter speed for your action shot is something which always arises. So you need to understand your subject. So what subject? It all depends on which subject you are clicking at that point of time, whether it is a bird or whether it is an animal, how tiny the bird is, or how if it is a bee or whatever it is. What is your know your subject, and you have to know how fast your subject can move. So depending on that, you will have to decide what shutter speed you want to get proper freeze of that particular action. So 1 by 800 per second, 800 seconds, 1 by 800 of shutter speed is something which is considered as a good shutter speed for wildlife photography. But it all, again, as I said, depends on the action of the which subject is it and what is it doing. This is a very nice emotional shot in action. If you see, it is from Bantipur again, and it is a fawn which is trying to suckle from the mom, and there is a very limited duration which you have when you get such moments, and we have to anticipate each and every moment. So with animals, insight into their behavior and reactions can place you lead at the right place and at the right time. So these moments, if at all, since the spotted deer is looking right into us, it has understood that our presence was there. So I knew that it would move quickly, and all I had to do was look, have an eye on my shutter speed, and quickly freeze that moment, because it would last longer. So the first thing is to research your subject. You need to know your subject, and you otherwise you won't be able to anticipate their behavior, and you would not be able to get perfect shots. So this is I mean, definitely a skill which will come with a lot of practice. And in wildlife photography, certain moments happen very rarely and last for a very few seconds. So freezing these moments can be very challenging. Uh, this is from Ranthambore again, and it is this. This is one of the tiger cub, and it was the mother. There was a family which has made the mom which has made the nilgai kill, and the family was on the feed. So it is about at the end of the you know the usually tigers eat the body of the behind the back body of the kill, and then come to the come on the topper part of the kill. So this is what it is, and here you can see the face of the deal guy, the expressions, the the nice flashy eyes of the tiger. Everything is so appropriate and up to the mark, and which is why this probably it can be outstanding. Otherwise, if at all it would have been a blurry or a shaky image, it would not have added so much. It would not have attracted this the impact which this has created. Coming to this, so this was the image which had reached BBC and various other national and international platforms. So on social media, and this was a rare sighting of the tiger fight, which we had witnessed. I was lucky enough to witness this moment. And if at all you remember the tigers, the male and female snarling, the female snarling image. So this is the continuity part of that series. So initially, this female was sitting with one of the male tiger, and we were trying to spot them, and suddenly while we were waiting for them, they were sleeping on one in between the bush, and we were waiting. We were on a full day safari, and we were waiting for them to get up and come out, because they were in the bush and we could not do anything. So we were waiting there during the afternoon time, and suddenly we see one tiger coming on the opposite direction, and it had taken a round loop, and it had silently visited to this couple, and a tap on the shoulder of the male, and these two started fighting. So if you zoom in this picture, and if you see this one tiger also behind, so that was a female which had taken advantage of this opportunity of both the males fighting, and it had ran across, leaving this tiger behind. So this was a very funny story as well. But yes, this tiger fight image was one of my dream moment which I had captured, and also it had given me nice reach to the social world, we can say. Again, here is the peacock, two subadults fighting. There were a few female peacocks also in that particular area. So here you can see how dry the forest is, and they were trying to fight who will woo the female. So maybe that was the fight between the two subadults. And this is how we capture the freezing moment, where one is at the top of the other, and how it is trying to scare the other peacock. This is very interesting. This is not a usual moment which usually happens. So here, if you see, this cub is trying to, this is a cub of a tigress, and this cub is trying to imitate its mom. So tigers usually, mark their claws on the branch of the trees, to it is a behavioral pattern basically. And if you see, this cub is also trying to imitate mom, so this is how they learn from their mom. And this is how mom teaches the different skills to the cubs while they are with her, in the initial 2 years of their time. So this is very interesting to see, because it is a very nice catch to capture. Sorry. Yeah. Also, this was from Nagarhole, and I was lucky to get this sighting where the elephant was trying to. Though we were at a place where we didn't. The elephant was hiding behind the tree branch, and we didn't want to disturb him, so we didn't move our vehicle, and we were there, and we could not get the whole elephant in the frame. But we while the elephant was trying to pluck leaves from the trunk, if you see, literally took chance of this little window I had, and I took a vertical shot and tried to capture this moment, which is a very beautiful sight to see, and not a very usual sight which we usually get of elephants. We see them playing in waters, we see them mock charging them, but this is very not a very usual sighting to see. One of the tiger mating images from Ranthambore again. So that is about the action. So we need to be, freezing these moments are very challenging, and we need to be very, keen on the shutter speed. We need to have a very keen eye on the shutter speed what we are having while taking action shots. We need to be on continuous focusing and continuous shooting mode, so that we can, get an accurate image from the series of activity happening. So this all comes with practice, and definitely you all will also attain such skills for sure. Creativity and framing. So thinking out of box, with regard to your photos and composition and framing, is a great way to stand out from the crowd. So, but true creativity can be difficult, and you need to be, into the right mindset while creating the images. So this is a shot which I had taken in Bangalore at the Cubbon Park, and the bamboo shoots were there, which is added as a frame in the in the picture, and they were just small tiny birds sitting there very far from my sight, and it was a very beautiful sight to me. And I happened to have this vision, which, usually what happens, this creativity, it gives a different perspective, and it allows you to discover what is already in front of you. So it's all in the presence of of your presence of time, and how you quickly get such images, because sometimes the perfect images, as I said, is staring right at you, right in the face, and you just have to see them. So this is how your creativity and your framing, if you can use it well, you can create good images. This was one of the shot which has helped me win a competition which was held in Karnataka, and this happened where I had a bigger lens, and the distance between elephant and a vehicle was not that much where I could frame the proper moment. So I took advantage of the time, and I saw this behavior habit of the elephant, and I thought, let me freeze this, because this is a very different perspective which we can get. So get such perspectives while clicking, while especially at the times where you have a longer lenses, and when you cannot create a habitat shot or something, then think creatively, think what you can add in your frame, think how you can frame your subject, and how you can give a different meaning to it all over. This is very interesting if you can understand. This is also explains the habitat of the place, and the frame, the canopy which was there, has added as the frame, and the leopard was very far behind sitting. So the ears are defining how it is. This is
Khushboo, we've overshot the time.
yes.
It's
So I'm
been
I'm
an
at
hour
the
and a half.
edge of it. I'm at the end.
Okay, okay.
Yes. Just give me 2 minutes, 2 more minutes. I'll definitely wind up very quickly. So this is all about photography, which I had spoken about, which we have to keep in mind. You know, the basic tips which we have to keep in mind. But one of the main responsible, one of the main aspect of wildlife photography is that we have to be very respectful towards when we are doing wildlife photography. We have to be very responsible. So animals should not be manipulated or handled in any way for the purpose of photography. So we have to be, because the most critical part of wildlife photography is ensuring that we are not disturbing the animals. So be respectful towards them, maintain distance, learn the unwritten rules, like basically for beginners, one of the most challenging part of wildlife photography is learning how to act and behave when on field. So generally what happens is we panic, and we start shouting, or our voice tones increase. So we have to be very conscious when we are on field, and things might seem obvious, but they don't always work the way, when we are facing wildlife. So we have to be very responsible, maintain the distance with the animal, with the subject, and it is very important for also, because other photographers are also sharing the field with us. So we have to be very careful about it. Have to be. And silence and patience is the key. Wildlife is about definitely about luck, about techniques. Wildlife photography includes all that aspect for sure. But if we have silence and patience, we might witness such beautiful moments, and we might be able to capture it so well. So have you maintain silence when you're in the field, and try to be very patient. So this is all from my side. I am sorry for I exceeded my time limit, but I hope I have given a good view of my journey in wildlife photography, and you must have enjoyed it. That's all from my side, Mohit.
Wonderful. Absolutely jaw-dropping images and really, really knowledgeable session. I think everybody sort of benefited because, I've been a photographer myself for the longest time, but, listening to you and your suggestions, when I brought my DSLR long time ago and I'm on point and shoot. So this was really a good, refreshing session that I've had, and it's egging me to go back to the field really quickly. So thank you very much. I want people you to answer
Yes.
questions. So Gaurav will read out the questions.
Yes.
Gaurav, you
Sure.
do that, and then you can answer. In the meantime,
I
I'll.
just have the most recent because I kept getting disconnected.
Hmm.
But I'll just read out a few. One is, could you share camera settings while clicking low-key images? And did you use strobe lights for clicking the subject?
There is no external lights which I have used in wildlife photography, and I would not suggest that also, because it is not ethical to use any kind of flashlight or when you're on the in the field, in the forest or something like that. So no extra additional lights have been used. The low light photography is where you have to understand how the light is falling, and if you have a darker background, you can just underexpose your images and see if you can get a nice image where your subject is standing out from the background. So this is a basic understanding of low light which I can give you. Otherwise,
Okay.
apart from that, we'll definitely, when on field, join me on my tours, and I'll definitely, you can practice this well with me, and you can master this technique.
Great, thanks. Prasad is asking, is it a good idea to operate your camera in manual mode with auto ISO?
Yes, auto ISO at times also works, but with manual settings, what happens, because the wildlife is so quick and the animal or the bird is so fluctuating. Like, say, suppose a bird is sitting in a nice light condition, and you have set your camera in the manual mode, and you are taking a picture, and suddenly, if it is going into a low light condition, so there for you you'll get either a motion blur, or probably your exposure will be at a toss. So manual mode is something which not every situation, it fits in every situation. So I would suggest aperture priority mode. That is my go-to mode which I usually use.
Okay. Vishwa is asking which settings you use for Langur picture and low key photos. Low key, meaning little darker photos, I guess.
Yes, yes, low key images. So, as I said earlier, it is about playing with your exposures and understanding the light well from where it is falling. That is where you can, attain low key images, and it will come with practice. If the light is falling from the back of the subject, then try to underexpose the brightest part of your frame and try to underexpose the images and get low key images.
Wonderful.
Unless and until the light is falling, if there is good light on the subject, you might not get low key images, but the light should be falling well on the subject and not on the background.
Which post processing software do you use, LR or PS? Which,
Uh,
according to you, is the most user friendly for a first time user?
User friendly, Lightroom is very user friendly. I mean, I would definitely recommend that. But I use both Lightroom and Photoshop. But Photoshop is something which I use more often, and I'm very handy with it. So I use Photoshop more. And it is about how it comforts you, what comforts you. Both the apps are not very different, but there are few things which we have to be taking care of while doing Lightroom or in Photoshop. So basic processing will be the same techniques.
So, Khushboo, there's a message from Vishwaji
Yes.
saying that which are the best settings for night photography and photography in the rain. You know, when it's raining, you want to be out with the camera. So I guess
Night.
it's a more technical
Yes.
question which you can answer.
Yes. So in this aspect, I mean, in such situations, usually the amount of light you have and the exposure you can get from your camera at that particular point of time is all depends on it. It all depends on that. Even in night photography, if there is any kind of light falling on that subject, that is when you can create good images. Otherwise, you should just enjoy the vision which you have in front of you. Enjoy that moment.
Wonderful. So I remember going to Amboli, a few years ago, and my senses all got mixed up because it was raining and it was so beautiful at night. There were birds roosting there, and there were
Yes.
Malabar pit pipers and Amboli bush frog and all those things. That were walking through the rain and the darkness and everything. And when I came back, I realized that all my senses had got mixed up. And it was a very spiritual moment for me. So the photos that I took were fantastic, but it was not so much for the photography. It was, of course, I enjoyed the photos, but it was the entire experience of being at night, where there's water and there's darkness and there are these, night creatures all around you. So
Hmm.
it's a very beautiful experience. I
Yes.
thought I'll just share it with you so
Yes.
that when you take people out, they may have similar
Yes,
experiences
I
too.
had the similar experience when I was in Kurg myself, and I was photographing frogs. I didn't happen to. I mean, there are a lot of images. I didn't know which ones to put here and which ones to not. So that I had shot using an external light because it was not a wildlife habitat kind of thing. It was in a coffee estate. It was not a forest where I could not use a flash or something. So here I use an external light, and I had captured frogs there in the rain, and it was very beautiful. But the only play is with the exposures and with the shutter speed. I mean, that is what we need to, keep checking on, which is why we need to, be on field and continuously with practice, we'll get it more better because lighting conditions differ from situation to situation.
Great. Over to you, Gaurav.
So I think one question is, which camera is good for wildlife under 75,000?
Uh, uh, there are different brands in DSLR or different digital cameras, Nikon or probably Canon or Sony. There's no camera which is right or which is wrong. Whichever fits your budget, just get that, and whichever is user friendly for your understanding skills is the best for you.
Yep. What sort of lens is used to capture the picture that shows the head of the snake? Not sure, but I think I heard you mention macro. If
Yes.
it is taken with macro lens, then how far was it?
So I was on 105 mm, and this green vine snake was resting on one of the trees. So it was not very far. So it was a decent space where I didn't disturb the snake, and in case if it was getting annoyed, I had just walked off and left that place.
Okay, great. So one last question, Gaurav, over to you.
Yeah, so I think there's one question that's here from Vimiji, which please suggest a good camera for wildlife photography. Should we skip that because I think the answer would be similar?
I will call her and I will tell her because
Yes.
I know that she's really fond of wildlife and
Whichever whichever
she
best
lives in
best.
the hub of wildlife. She lives in Adipur, which is next
Oh,
to
wow.
Gandhidham, and there's wildlife all around her. So I will send her the information.
Mohit, you can also suggest her if at all she can, probably borrow or rent a few cameras before, deciding on which one to buy, whichever suits her budget. Just try to ask her to experiment on different models, either by borrowing or probably by renting, and which will give her a better idea on which brand and which equipment would be best, depending on the environment she's living in.
Correct. And Tarish Bhaiya, I will tell you all about the lenses. And, so we sort of just concluding now. And I wanted to thank Khushboo for this wonderful session, which was so engaging. And, she's going to be conducting many tours throughout, and we've got this huge list of tours that she's going to be leading. You can be with her on these tours, which are very reasonably priced. They're very different tours. They are conservation oriented. They are ethical in nature. We're not going to rush to get species just because we wanted to make long lists. We're going to have every aspect of ecotourism, right from culture to social angles to how to look at sustainability, how to deepen our experiences with people. Who are protecting nature all the time or who are living with nature, in their own habitats. So there are hundreds of dimensions, and we need to look around and have a 360 or 180-degree view for conservation. And photographers can do a wonderful job. They possess those huge lenses and cameras which are expensive, and that can really bring the cause or the plight of animals across to the world, and for people to appreciate them and do something meaningful for them. So that is the purpose of wildlife photography for me and for Khushboo and for Gaurav, and I think for everyone who's been here. So thank you for being here, friends. I will be concluding this webinar. We've gone 45 minutes over, but it was so engaging that we just couldn't keep our eyes
I'm
off.
sorry,
Thank you.
I could not stop
No
myself from
problem.
sharing all the stories.
Yeah. So you'll hear endless stories from her when you're with her on these tours.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Gaurav, and thank you,
Thank you,
Khushboo, and
everybody.
thank
Thank you,
you
Mohit.
all our audience members. Namaste. Good night. Shabak Khair. Shubh Ratri. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Good night.